Just like I hinted at the top of the show, President Bola Tinubu has now signed off on the Expatriate Employment Levy, and today it has entered a different phase altogether. In the course of the show, we will make very, very, aggressive efforts to ensure that we at least answer about a dozen of the questions associated with how this process will go on the one hand, then on the other hand, what impact it will have in terms of the economy and then jobs across board in Nigeria. I'm joined by Professor Abiodun Adeni of Base University to help us try to bring some shed light on these issues. I mean, you and I have been here severally. Thank you, Prof, for making our time to be here to look at these issues. We're now being told that one of the advantages that come with this EEL, as it's referred to, is that revenue generation, all right, is an element. Then, of course, you have issues around encouragement of local employment, all right, because those have been concerns, no doubt about it. Amongst other things, protection of local industries and job markets, and then enhanced compliance and regulation. Walk us through all of this.
Yeah, I think from my readings of the initiative, it's consistent with what every responsible government should do about enhancing the revenue generation. And of course, if you see that there are windows that you have not yet explored, if you see that there are opportunities still hanging in there, they are still sleeping in your rights, in a situation where you see that something is being done in other countries, and you think you can do it, why not? And we're looking at a situation where in our own situation, we have expatriates being given quotas, right? Okay, so they come in giving quotas, and of course, after the quota they come in, they start working, and the only thing they do in terms of contribution to government is the personal income tax that you and I pay.
So that's not far-reaching enough?
No, that's not far-reaching enough. Personal income tax, from my understanding, goes to the states. Nothing goes to the federal government. And of course, most of these expatriates actually move between states when they are working. So if they move between states, it is very easy for them to evade tax. But when they are paying personal income tax, it goes straight to the government. And when they're paying, this levy, this EEL, it goes straight to the federal government. And of course, it is not a levy that the individual expatriate worker is expected to pay. It is paid by their employers. And we'll have situations where many of these companies in construction, in mining, they exceed their quotas. Because of...
That's already a breach.
That's already a breach, which is a factor of our weak systems. They just take advantage of it, exceed their quotas, and because there's no regulation, there's no much obligation, But now we have a situation with this kind of levy. They will be obliged, to pay for each worker, expatriate worker that will be brought in, expatriate so-called. Because many of these expatriates, you find them, so-called expatriates, you find them everywhere, And in the construction industry, you find them. In the mining industry, you find them. In the oil and gas sector, you find them.
Telecoms.
And of course, even in telecoms. And in modern times, in recent times, you even seen them in retail businesses. You see them in supermarkets, in hospitality, in creative industry. They are everywhere because we are very permissive. For a densely populated country like Nigeria, we are busy bringing in expatriates without regulation, without much obligation, in a situation where we have the human resources, that can probably do what these expatriates are doing. And you cannot blame them because they are just taking advantage of the weak system. But in a country like Saudi Arabia, for instance, in Singapore, in Japan, in Oman, these things are applicable. They collect this levy. And of course, if you look at these countries compared to Nigeria, they're not as populated as ourselves, So despite their small population, they are protective of their citizens. So why not us, with our dense population, with huge number of youths who are unemployed, and many of them yearning for work. So by the time you begin to impose some of these obligations, obligations, you find some restriction, being exercised on the part of the expatriates in terms of the influx of the people who they class as expatriates, who we know, like Senator Shimele once said, that some of them are even prisoners brought into the country to work. And why is this so? Once again, because of our weak regulatory system, which they are taking advantage of. So beyond revenue generation, it's also the opportunity for our own people to get employed, because it obviously will obviously will discourage those who are in the business of bringing people who you cannot ordinarily call expatriates, but they're just coming in because of the advantage they're taking from our system. And what about, you know, the pressure that it puts on Forex? Do not forget that when they make their money, they're not on a long-term basis, not going to be invested here.
So they have to repatriate.
They repatriate, you know. Pressure on Forex, which we are all complaining about, you know, and so I think it's a legitimate, legitimate initiative.
Incidentally, you talked about, I mean, you made a continual reference to regulation.
Yeah.
But there's a twin element of regulation and compliance. Nigeria has not had very impressive reputation with regards to compliance and regulation on many fronts, including the health sector, for example. So how do we intend to make this a reality going forward beyond being politically correct?
Well, I think there's something about improvement. You know, we know that there are weaknesses. We know regulations are there, you know, but they are implemented in the breach. It's not to say that we should not continue to try, you know. And of course, for this program to come to this stage, I'm aware that it went through different interagency collaboration, interagency vetting. The Infrastructural Construction Regulatory Commission was involved. Ministry of Finance was involved. Ministry of Interior is involved. The Nigerian Immigration Service is involved. You know, so you have different agencies of government, different ministries collaborating to bring this about. Even though the Nigerian Immigration Service will be responsible for the implementation under the aegis of the Ministry of Interior. So we're just very hopeful. Maybe it's a call that we should also have to make to government to be much more responsive this time around, you know, because that's actually why people hardly trust this policy. People think that, okay, when the money comes, at the end of the day, we're not going to find it. It's going to go through the drain, you know. But that shouldn't be the reason why we should not, you know, bring up initiatives that are worthy.
In the last couple of years, we have had big conversation around ease of doing business. I mean, in fairness to government, we've seen efforts being made along that line, and we've seen some amount of results. With this EEL now, I mean, is there any way it negatively impacts the efforts? Because we're trying to also drag in foreign direct investment.
You know, you're not going to say because the UK has so many regulations, because of that, you're not going to go and do business in the UK or the US, for instance. These are countries that are developed, and they're developed more because of their compliance with rules and regulations. I lived in the UK, and I know the number of taxes I was paying. You know, you pay council tax, road tax, television license, right? You buy that license, you know, all kinds of taxes, you know, that you pay. And because the system is functional, you're not complaining. Yes, you've grown under those taxes, but then you still comply, you know, and you're happy because you get, government gives you back in terms of service, you know. That's the kind of thing, system we should be thinking about. And I do not imagine any serious-minded company using expatriates saying because, you know, you have to pay a levy, that will discourage you. Over time, you've been existing here, making profit from here, you know, with very marginal obligations in terms of giving back to the system. And this time around, what the system is saying through EEL is that, yes, you've been paying some income, you've been paying some money to state government, now pay to the federal government. What's wrong with that? Why would that amount to discouraging business or foreign investment? No, it's just about obligation. I mean, you know what United Arab Emirates is, Dubai particularly. You know how, you know, regulations are there, how we have plenty of regulations, but yet people are still compliant and people are still moving there, you know, because the system is working. So, but if we make our own system work, you know, consequent of some of these initiatives, I think it's not enough reason for anybody to say that it's a move that will discourage business.
Incidentally, Prof, this narrative looks so beautiful, but then how is it that we see resistance to the idea altogether?
Yeah, you will see resistance, you know, because every change comes with resistance. And when people are profiting from a system.
No matter how bad it is.
No matter how bad it is, they think, it's just, with due respect, I think it's just for selfish reasons. When you think you are profiting heavily, with little obligation, you do not want that circumstance to change. Do not forget that ordinary people want to subscribe to the least option, the easy option, and they find this place as being, because the system is weak, the people, citizens are also sometimes unpatriotic in their behavior, and sometimes they even collaborate with these expatriates to circumvent the system. And when the change is coming, in terms of increasing their level of commitment to the system, resistance is natural. But if you look at it deeply, you see that in fear, you just have to be fair to the system, because you want to make the system to work so that you can continue to profit from it. If the system is not stable, if it deteriorates, if it degenerates on account of lack of funds, on account of lack of infrastructure, which some of this revenue can be committed to, you're not going to be around anymore, to profit from it. The best you're going to do is to exit, because you have your own country that you're coming from, where you're coming from in the first instance. That's not the thing that we should actually be concerned about. All we have to be concerned about is the future of our country. And we're seeing that countries have done this, as a line of revenue generation. Why not us?
Excellent. But then it's amazing, because a while ago you made a reference to interagency collaboration, which we expect should ideally be a very pivotal plank in this conversation. But let's talk about the Ministry of Government, upon whose desk this whole idea stops. Is it Interior? Is it Finance? Or Trade?
It's Ministry. It's Nigerian Immigration Service. Is it Service or Services?
Which is an agency apparently under Ministry of Interior.
Under Ministry of Interior, and they are responsible for the allocation of expatriate quota. So I think it's essentially under them. Do not forget that government came up with this initiative from what we've read, and after the initiative, they now ask for, people to bid. Companies or consultants, that will have the relevant infrastructure to administer it to bid, and they bidded, and one of them won. So it's under the supervision of the Immigration Service, which is also under the Ministry of Interior, like you said, but of course, Ministry of Finance is also involved, because they have the helicopter responsibility over income revenue generation across the country.
Let's talk about issues around people now saying that, look, Nigerians also feel threatened because this could further, of course, on the one hand, it streamlines how expatriates come into the country and how they operate while they are here, all right? But how do we allay the fears of Nigerians who feel this is a huge threat to their own jobs?
No, it's not. The jobs of Nigerians are actually not threatened by any means. It concerns expatriates, and not all expatriates, those who work for multilateral agencies, those who work, diplomats are excluded, United Nations workers are excluded, but we're talking about expatriates who come in only
professionals,
for business reasons.
Artisans.
Those who are in the construction industry, the mining industry, the oil and gas industry, and such sectors, and come in with people, that they can actually get over here. And at the end of the day, it might even be good for them, because now they'll be forced to look inwards, and in looking inwards, they'll be paying lesser. You know what it means for them to fly in workers from abroad? They pay flight tickets, they accommodate them, they feed them, they care for their security,
their health,
they care for their movement in terms of transportation-wise, etc., etc. They pay all kinds of allowances. But if they look inwards, of course, where they can also get competent people, it will be very helpful for the system. Remember that many of our own citizens also go out there to do the same work, but we're not necessarily regarded as expatriates there, because of circumstances. But we do the same work and we do very well. So if we go out there and do the same work very well, why not here? Why not here if the conditions are right, if the opportunities are right, if we're not neo-colonial in our thought, thinking that it is only when it is a foreigner that is doing the job that you get the best out of it.
As it stands right now, Prof, is it correct to say the EEL has gone into force already?
No, I think from the reports, again, it was launched last week. You know, I think I read that it's going to start March 15th. You know, but registration is ongoing as we speak. It will start March 15th. And one month after, I beg your pardon, compliance is supposed to have been effected, you know. So it's out there in the public, you know, and it shouldn't be a problem because we have nearly over 200,000 expatriates in this country. That's, that number may not be significant in a nation of nearly 225 million people, you know, for us to be able to track them and for us to be able to ensure compliance. If people are genuinely here, legitimately here, there's nothing to fear because you must have come here in the first instance knowing that you want to contribute. And of course, we know that many of these expatriates who are here are doing well, very well. None of them is doing any low-class, low-income, low-earning job. You know, they are doing jobs that are well-paying. You know, so compliance, paying that kind of levy shouldn't be a problem. So, except you do not love the country, or except you have some motive that are sinister, that are inimical to the growth, to the economic growth of the country, with due respect.
One of the concerns we can't just take attention away from is the issue of data. You just talked about 250, thereabouts, 1,000 expatriates, or 200,000, and you say that's insignificant given the population of Nigeria, which is quite factual. Yeah. However, how do we raise our game, as it were, with regards to data? We are not a country that has done very impressively about data in other critical areas. Some people say even that figure is just being bandied by Nigerians randomly. But how do we drive data as part of this process?
Yeah, I think that the onus is on government. You know, you have relevant agencies that are responsible for data mining, data generation, and data sharing. The National Bureau of Statistics is there. And of course, there are other agencies who are responsible. The National Population MPC, National Population Commission is also there. Well, we have to also imagine that, you know, many of these agencies are not doing badly, even though we know that there are rooms for them to improve. You know, the best we can do is to continue to call on them, you know, to continue to up their ante, you know, be much more responsible, much more productive and efficient in delivering their mandates, you know, which is feeding us with relevant information with respect to data. And we're in the 21st century where these things are not too difficult. Sometimes it's not about physical counting. Sometimes it's about enumeration. Sometimes about estimation.
Aggregation of data.
Aggregation, yeah. Sometimes it's about deaths and births, you know. Sometimes it's about you can get this data through entries and exits into the countries. There are so many ways it can be done. If we are very proper in monitoring the process, I think we shouldn't have any problem.
Let's talk about, some people who are watching now probably telling themselves, hold on a second, this is not the first time we're hearing of things like this. What eventually will happen to the revenue generated from this process? So let's talk about
that's actually the problem.
The Naira and Kobo.
It's very concerning, really, and that's why most Nigerians don't have faith in some of these initiatives, you know, because at the end of the day, you only hear that so amount of money has been raised, but you don't know what happens to it. There's a problem of accountability and transparency in public accounting system, which is our bane, really, we can't doubt that. I remember we recovered some money stolen over the years, and the allegations, genuine allegations, verifiable allegations, that some of these monies have also been relooted. And of course, in the Buhari administration, there were so many announcements around how much money we were borrowing. We're permanently borrowing. But if you look around, you may not be able to see what those monies were used for. And what we hear is stories, salacious, you know, stories of looting, you know, prebendal rapacity, mindless looting of the public patrimony, which is very shameful. And that's the fear, really. If we make this kind of money from expatriate levy, which is estimated to be about $2 trillion or $2 billion annually, I beg your pardon, if we use it properly for infrastructure, realizing that there are projections that over the next 30 years we need at least 30 trillion, you know, to
infrastructure.
30 trillion to meet our infrastructural needs. You know, if we keep making $2 billion every year, we're going to be itching towards moving towards
faster.
Yeah, faster towards that requirement that we need on a long-term basis. But if the monies are diverted, unfortunately, of course, into private pockets, you know, of course, it's going to be a continuous shame, which we don't really want. And what do we do other than to call upon government, you know, managers of our lives, you know, consistent with the Leviathan, those who have surrendered our rights to lead us properly, you know, so that we'll not continue to go astray.
Let's talk about PPP as an element now, the public-private partnership idea. In what ways do you think, quite frankly, the PPP elements can help enhance this EEL process?
You know, you know what it is. It's generally a belief that the private sector is much more productive and efficient when it comes to service delivery.
Maybe a bit more deliberate too.
A bit more deliberate, and sometimes we also argue that they've got the technical expertise, you know, the human resources, you know, and of course the know-how, if you also want, you know, the diligence, you know, because they are concerned about profits. Public sector is largely about social service, you know, rendering a service, and sometimes in our own case, they become very lethargic, very reluctant, and self-aggrandizing. So if you have private participation, you know, with a project like this, you want to expect that productivity will be assured.
Some people will say, look, government is just trying to introduce another form of tax. People over the years, right from when I was in primary school, have talked about multiple taxation and so on and so forth. We have had an argument back and forth, whether it's economical or social and what have you. How do we convince the majority of Nigerians that this is not another form of taxation, that it is what it should be? Because, like you say, it had worked in a couple of other countries.
Yeah, government is not. Government has to impose taxes. That's how countries are run. Government has to impose taxes. If you don't, how do you generate income if you don't impose tax? The only question is that what do you do with the tax? I'm not going to ask question if I'm living in the UK, for instance. I didn't really bother about the many taxes I'm paying because I can see the effect of the impact of the council around me. Before you see any borehole, any pothole in front of your house or around your house, you know, the next thing you see that it is being filled, you know, or it is being covered, you know. 5 minutes after you make a call for ambulance, it has arrived. Police, you know, 5 minutes you see police around in case of a 911 call. So you are seeing that social efficiency, social responsiveness, leadership or responsiveness of governance. And of course, these processes are funded through taxes. So because when you want to pay now, you don't ask too many questions. Yes, you feel it as a human being, but you see efficiency around you, you know, and that's why the many taxes are there, you know, but you are still happy that the system is working. So, but in our case, the problem is that, you know, we are probably raising eyebrows because if this turns to be another kind of tax, because it's a levy, even if it's on foreigners, you're not going to see the result. That's our worry. But that's not enough reason for us to continue to shortchange ourselves, to prevent ourselves from making the money when the opportunity is there.
Incidentally, it's just 1 week now since the president approved of the EEL. So we understand the official, if you like, launch of it in terms of enforcement is just a matter of days away. Of course, it's a long-term project, so which means there's a pretty good chance you and I will have this conversation time and
anytime.
again.
Yeah, anytime.
I look forward to that, Professor Biodu Adeniyi. Thank you for coming to shed light.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Incidentally, that's what we'll wrap it up. Everyone, thank you for watching. I'm Muya Mofwegwe. We'll see you again.